Two Apache twin girls invite him to their home, without telling him that he would be their mother's husband. John had always been curious about new places and new people. Moving to the small Apache community had been both exciting and intimidating. The town was quiet, with dusty roads winding between simple houses and open fields where the sun touched everything with a golden glow. John was used to busy streets and the constant hum of the city, so the calmness here felt almost magical, yet strange. It was a place where people knew each other, where faces were familiar, and where strangers were noticed immediately. John didn't mind being noticed, but he wanted to belong, even just a little. It was at the local community event that he first saw them, the twins. They were identical in appearance, almost like reflections of each other. Their long dark hair fell in perfect symmetry, and their eyes sparkled with curiosity and warmth. They moved together, but each had her own little gestures that set them apart. One laughed easily, her voice soft and musical, while the other observed quietly, her smile subtle but meaningful. They were helping set up for the event, arranging decorations and handing out small snacks to children, yet somehow, they noticed John in the crowd almost immediately. When they approached him, John felt a little nervous. They didn't seem intimidating at all. In fact, they seemed genuinely curious. "Hello," one said, tilting her head slightly. "You're new here, aren't you?" Her voice was calm, with a touch of friendliness that immediately put him at ease. The other twin smiled and nodded, adding, "I haven't seen you around before. Are you enjoying the festival?" John smiled back, unsure of what to say at first. He hadn't expected anyone to notice him so quickly, let alone approach him. "Yes, it's nice," he replied. "Everything is very different from what I'm used to." The twins exchanged a glance, almost like a secret conversation. Then one of them laughed softly. "We like different," she said. "Sometimes different is the best." Her words were simple, but they carried a sense of understanding that surprised John. They continued talking, asking questions about him, where he was from, and what had brought him to their community. John found himself answering freely. There was something about their presence that made him feel safe, as if they were genuinely interested in who he was rather than judging him. As the conversation flowed, he realized that he hadn't smiled this much in weeks. After a while, one of the twins tilted her head and said, "Do you want to see our home? It's not far from here and our mom would love to meet you. She always likes meeting new people." John hesitated. He didn't want to impose or seem rude, but the invitation was warm and sincere. I suppose that would be fine," he said. The twins' faces lit up with excitement. "Great," they said together, and they began leading him through the winding streets of the town. As they walked, they talked about everything: the festival, the local traditions, their favorite places to visit, and even small stories from their childhood. John listened, fascinated. They spoke with such honesty and laughter that he felt as though he had known them for years. When they reached their home, John noticed it immediately. It was a small, modest house, but there was a warmth about it that he couldn't describe. The walls were painted in soft, earthy colors, and the garden outside was filled with flowers, herbs, and small plants carefully arranged. The air smelled faintly of wildflowers and fresh soil. Even before entering, John felt welcomed. Inside, the house was just as inviting. The walls were decorated with handmade crafts and photographs of family gatherings. There was a sense of care and attention in every corner. The twins' mother was there, waiting in the living room. She was a woman with gentle features, strong eyes, and a kind smile. When she saw John, she rose and greeted him warmly. "Welcome," she said. "It's always good to meet someone new. Please make yourself comfortable." John felt a mix of nerves and gratitude. Her presence was commanding yet comforting. The twins stayed close, chatting with him, introducing him to small details of their home, and even showing him some of the handmade decorations. John couldn't help but notice how connected the twins were to their mother. They moved with her seamlessly, helping her, laughing together and sharing small, unspoken moments of understanding. As the afternoon passed, John realized that he was beginning to feel like he belonged here, even if just for a little while. The twins offered him food, simple but made with care. They shared stories about the family traditions, the local culture, and even about the small quirks of the town. John listened intently, fascinated. There was a richness to their lives that he hadn't experienced before, a deep sense of family, of connection, of belonging. The twins were playful, sometimes teasing each other softly, sometimes including John in their small jokes. They asked him about his life in the city, what he missed, and what he hoped to do in the future. John found himself opening up, sharing stories he rarely told anyone. They listened with interest, their eyes never leaving his face, their reactions genuine and heartfelt. As evening approached, the sun cast a golden light across the house and garden. The warmth of the day, the laughter, and the stories had left John feeling unexpectedly content. He realized that he had spent the entire afternoon without thinking about the world outside this small town, without worrying about work, responsibilities, or the pressures of his usual life. The twins walked with him to the door when it was time to leave. "You must come back soon," one of them said. "We have so many more stories to share and our mom wants to know more about you too." John nodded, grateful for the invitation and the kindness they had shown him. I would like that," he said sincerely. As he walked back through the quiet streets toward his temporary home, John couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted within him. This wasn't just a friendly visit. It was a glimpse into a world he hadn't known, a world full of warmth, connection, and unexpected surprises. The twins had opened a door, and he had stepped through it willingly, not knowing what awaited him on the other side. That night, as John lay in bed, he thought about the twins and their mother. He thought about their laughter, their kindness, and the strange, compelling feeling that he had been welcomed into something bigger than himself. For the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of hope, a hope that perhaps this small town, these new people, could become a part of his life in ways he hadn't imagined. And deep down, though he didn't realize it yet, he sensed that this was only the beginning of a journey, one filled with surprises, lessons, and bonds that would test him, challenge him, and ultimately change him in ways he could never have predicted. The next day, John woke with a sense of curiosity he hadn't felt in a long time. The morning sun filtered through the small window of his rented room, casting warm patterns across the floor. He remembered the laughter of the twins and the gentle smile of their mother, and a strange mixture of excitement and nervousness stirred within him. Something about that family had left an impression on him, deeper than he expected. It wasn't just friendliness, it was a feeling of connection, of stepping into a world he had only glimpsed for a short while. After breakfast, John decided to explore the town a little more. The streets were quiet in the morning, with the occasional neighbor passing by, greeting each other with warmth and familiarity. He walked slowly, taking in the small shops, the dusty pathways, and the open fields that stretched beyond the town. Everything felt peaceful, almost untouched by the rush of modern life. Yet even in that calm, his mind kept returning to the twins. He wondered what their lives were like, how they spent their days, and why they had taken such an interest in him so quickly. By late morning, he received a message from one of the twins. It was simple. "Are you free today? Come visit us again. Mom has something she'd like to show you." John hesitated for a moment. He wasn't sure what to expect, but the warmth in the message made it hard to refuse. He agreed, and soon found himself walking toward their home again, carrying a small gift he had picked up from a local store, a small wooden ornament he thought might please their mother. When he arrived, the twins greeted him at the door, both smiling brightly as if the sun had been waiting for him all morning. "We're so glad you came," one of them said. "Mom has been talking about you." The other twin led him inside, chatting easily about the small things that had happened in town since yesterday. Their laughter was light and effortless, and John felt himself relaxing immediately. The mother was in the living room, arranging some papers on a small table. She looked up when John entered and gave him a warm, steady smile. "I'm glad you came again," she said. Her voice was calm, yet there was a gentle authority in it that made John feel both welcomed and observed. She gestured to a chair beside her. "Please sit. We have some things to share with you today." John felt a slight nervousness, but he nodded and sat down. The twins settled near him, one on each side, their presence comforting rather than overwhelming. For a while they all sat in silence, the quiet of the house enveloping him. There was a feeling of anticipation in the air, though it wasn't clear what it meant. The mother's eyes seemed to hold a depth of understanding, as if she knew thoughts and feelings John had not yet expressed. Finally, she spoke. "I know you are new here," she began, "and I also know that meeting new people can be both exciting and confusing. But there is something important we need to talk about." John's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure what she meant, but he could feel the weight of her words. He nodded slowly, encouraging her to continue. The twins exchanged a glance, subtle but meaningful. They didn't speak, but their presence was reassuring, as if silently telling him that whatever was coming, he was not alone. The mother leaned forward slightly, her hands resting on the table. "Our family, it is very close. We live together, we care for each other, and we support each other in ways that may be different from what you know. And sometimes, new connections can change the course of our lives in unexpected ways." John felt a tightness in his chest. Her words were gentle, but they carried weight. He tried to understand, to prepare himself for whatever revelation was coming. The twins watched him intently, their eyes reflecting concern, curiosity, and a hint of mischief. The mother continued, choosing her words carefully. "When you came yesterday, we welcomed you into our home. It was meant to be a simple visit, but we also saw something in you, someone who could understand, respect, and share in the life of our family. I want to be honest with you. I hope you will listen with an open heart." John swallowed, unsure what to say. He nodded quietly, encouraging her to continue, though his mind raced with possibilities. She paused for a moment, then said softly, "I would like you to become part of our family, not just as a friend, but in a closer, more meaningful way. I hope you will consider being my husband." John's heart stopped. The words were clear, calm, and deliberate. He had not expected this at all. For a long moment he couldn't respond, unsure what to say or how to react. He looked at the twins, searching their faces for some clue, and saw that they were watching him carefully. Their expressions were complex, curiosity, hope, and a small hint of playfulness intertwined in their identical features. I don't know what to say," John finally whispered. His mind was spinning. He had come for a simple visit, to meet the family and share a pleasant afternoon, but now his life felt as if it had taken a sharp turn. He didn't feel anger, but surprise, confusion, and a deep sense of responsibility. The mother nodded slowly, her gaze steady. "I understand. This is a lot to take in, and I do not expect you to decide immediately. We only ask that you think about it, that you consider the bonds, the respect, and the life we share." She smiled gently. "The twins and I will give you time." The twins reached out, each placing a hand lightly on his arm. "We know this is sudden," one said softly. "But we also know that you are kind and honest. We want you to feel welcome, not pressured." The other twin nodded, adding, "And no matter what you decide, we will remain friends. That will never change." John took a deep breath, trying to steady his thoughts. The initial shock began to give way to reflection. He thought about the kindness of the family, the openness of the twins, and the gentle authority of their mother. He realized that this was not a trap, nor a trick. It was an honest, heartfelt offer based on trust, respect, and connection. For the rest of the afternoon, they spoke more casually, sharing stories about their lives, their traditions, and their experiences as a close-knit family. John listened intently, slowly beginning to see the world they lived in. It was different from his own, but it was rich in understanding, respect, and love. The twins included him in small activities, showing him local crafts, helping in the kitchen, and sharing their favorite spots in the garden. With each passing hour, John felt the tension in his chest ease slightly. The revelation was still heavy, but the warmth of the family, the honesty of the mother, and the playful support of the twins made him feel that perhaps he could face this challenge. He didn't have all the answers yet, and he didn't know what the future would hold, but he understood one thing clearly: he was not alone. As evening approached, the family gathered in the living room again. The sunlight streamed through the windows, casting soft patterns across the floor. The twins laughed quietly, sharing a story from earlier in the day, while the mother watched with a gentle smile. John realized that the initial shock of the revelation was giving way to a sense of curiosity and openness. Before he left, the mother spoke again. "Take your time," she said. "We only ask that you be honest with yourself and with us. When you are ready, we will be here." The twins waved goodbye, their smiles warm and encouraging. John stepped out into the quiet streets, his mind a whirl of thoughts, feelings, and reflections. Walking back to his home, he thought about the day, the family, and the unexpected turn his life had taken. He realized that he had entered a world far different from the one he knew, and that the bonds of this family were strong, deep, and sincere. Though the situation was complex, he also felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps he could find a place here, not as a stranger, but as someone who truly belonged. That night, as he lay in bed, John reflected on the day's events. The warmth of the twins' smiles, the gentle authority of their mother, and the sense of connection he had felt made him realize that life could change suddenly and unexpectedly. And while he didn't know what the next steps would be, he knew one thing for certain. He had been welcomed into something the days that followed were quiet, yet in John's mind, a storm of thoughts raged. He walked through the town as usual, observing the gentle rhythm of life, children playing in open fields, neighbors exchanging greetings, and the occasional bird flying across the golden sky. Yet beneath the calm surface of the town, John's mind churned with the unexpected revelation he had received from the twins' mother. He had come seeking simple friendship and familiarity, and instead, he had been offered a place in a family, an invitation that carried weight he had never anticipated. John found himself thinking of the twins often. Their laughter, the way they moved together in perfect harmony, and the subtle differences that made each of them unique occupied his thoughts constantly. He also thought about their mother, her gentle smile, the quiet authority in her voice, and the depth of understanding that seemed to flow from her with every word she spoke. He couldn't deny that he felt a sense of connection to all of them, a warmth that he hadn't felt in years. But at the same time, uncertainty gnawed at him. How could he possibly navigate this new role? Was he ready to accept a responsibility he hadn't even imagined? It was late morning when he received another message from one of the twins. "Come over if you want. Mom wants to talk, but it doesn't have to be serious. We just want to share time with you." John hesitated, staring at the message for several minutes. His mind was full of questions and doubts, yet he realized that avoiding them wouldn't help. With a deep breath, he decided to go. Whatever this was, he needed to face it. When he arrived at their home, the twins were waiting at the door. They greeted him with warmth and gentle smiles, easing some of the tension he carried. "We're glad you came," one said softly. "Don't worry, Mom isn't going to pressure you, she just wants to talk." The other twin added, "We know it's a lot to think about, and no matter what you decide, we'll understand." Their words, though simple, carried reassurance, reminding John that he wasn't alone in this. Inside, the mother was sitting at the kitchen table, a cup of tea in front of her. She gestured for him to sit across from her, her expression calm and inviting. "Thank you for coming," she said gently. "I understand this has been unexpected. I only ask that you listen and consider what I say with an open heart. We don't rush decisions here." John nodded, trying to steady his thoughts. He felt the twins nearby, one on each side, their presence a comforting anchor in the sea of uncertainty. He realized that their support was not just playful or casual, it was deliberate and caring. They were showing him that he was not just a visitor, but someone they wanted to include in their world in whatever way he could accept. The mother leaned forward slightly. "John, our family is very close. We live together, care for each other, and share responsibilities that may seem unusual to outsiders. But the truth is, this closeness is what sustains us. When you visited us, I saw qualities in you that resonated with our way of life: honesty, respect, and kindness. I want to be clear. The offer I made is not just for friendship. It is about joining us in a way that is meaningful, respectful, and sincere. You would not be alone in this. We would support each other." John's mind raced. He understood the words, but their weight pressed heavily upon him. To become part of this family in such a deep way was a responsibility he had not anticipated. Yet, as he looked at the twins and their mother, he felt something else, a pull, a sense of belonging that he had not realized he longed for. For the next hour, they spoke in a gentle, deliberate way. The mother shared stories of her life, the upbringing of the twins, and the traditions that shaped their family. She spoke of respect, trust, and the bonds that held them together. John listened carefully, absorbing every word. He asked questions, trying to understand the dynamics, the expectations, and the emotional depth of the relationships. The twins contributed too, their voices soft but filled with warmth, sharing small anecdotes about their lives and expressing their care for him. As the conversation continued, John felt a mix of emotions. There was gratitude for their honesty and kindness, confusion about the new role he was being offered, and a subtle curiosity about what life would be like if he accepted. He realized that this was more than a simple offer. It was an opportunity to step into a world that valued connection and understanding over convenience and personal comfort. Yet doubt lingered. Could he truly fit into this family? Could he navigate the unique dynamics, respect their traditions, and maintain his own sense of self? These questions circled endlessly in his mind, and he found himself glancing at the twins, searching for reassurance. Their smiles, calm and encouraging, reminded him that acceptance and understanding were not expected immediately. They were built over time. After a while, the mother stood and moved to the window, looking out at the garden. "John, we don't ask for decisions lightly. We ask only that you consider the possibilities and that you observe and understand before making your choice. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes it brings people together in ways we cannot foresee. What matters is how we respond, with honesty, care, and respect." The twins moved closer, each placing a hand on his shoulder. "We're here with you," one said softly. "We want you to know that this isn't something you face alone." The other twin nodded, her eyes reflecting sincerity. "And whatever you decide, we'll respect it. We just want you to feel welcome, to understand us, and to know that there's trust here." John took a deep breath. The weight of the offer was still heavy, but the warmth and sincerity of the family gave him courage. He realized that the decision was not just about joining a family in the conventional sense. It was about trust, understanding, and mutual respect. It was about forming bonds that could grow over time, bonds that required patience, honesty, and an open heart. They spent the rest of the afternoon together, engaging in small activities that allowed John to observe and participate in family life. He helped in the kitchen, learning how to prepare simple meals in the way they liked, and the twins guided him patiently, laughing when he made small mistakes but always encouraging him. He wandered in the garden, listening to stories about the plants, the seasons, and the ways in which the family cared for their home. Each moment offered insight into the depth and meaning of their daily lives. By evening, John felt a shift within himself. The initial shock of the revelation had given way to contemplation and understanding. He realized that the offer from the mother was not a trap or a test. It was an invitation to share in a life built on trust and connection. And though uncertainty remained, he also felt a glimmer of hope, a hope that perhaps he could find a place within this family, learning, sharing, and growing together. When it was time to leave, the mother spoke again, her tone gentle but firm. "Take your time, John. Reflect, observe, and understand. There is no rush. The bonds we form are meant to last, but they must also be entered with awareness and willingness." The twins waved goodbye, their smiles warm and encouraging, easing the tension that had lingered in his chest. Walking home, John thought deeply about the day. He replayed conversations, gestures, and small moments that had felt significant. He realized that acceptance would not be immediate, but he also recognized that avoidance was impossible. The family had offered honesty, warmth, and inclusion, qualities he had longed for, even without knowing it. That night, as he lay in bed, John reflected on what he had experienced. The revelation was still extraordinary, yet he felt an emerging clarity. Life sometimes presented unexpected opportunities, and it was in these moments that character, understanding, and courage were tested. He didn't know what the future held, but he understood that openness, honesty, and patience would guide him forward. And as sleep came, John felt the faint but persistent pull of possibility, the sense that, despite uncertainty, he had been invited into a life rich with connection, respect, and potential growth. The journey had begun, and though the path was unclear, he was determined to navigate it with care and awareness. John woke the next morning with a restless feeling that he could not shake. The quiet streets of the Apache town, which had once felt peaceful, now seemed to mirror the unrest inside him. The revelation of the mother's offer and the invitation to join their family as more than just a visitor weighed heavily on his mind. He had spent days thinking, reflecting, and walking through the streets, trying to understand what he truly felt. But the more he thought, the more complicated his emotions became. He realized that this was not a simple choice. It was not merely about accepting an invitation or declining it. It was about understanding a family, their traditions, and the depth of the bonds they shared. John decided that the only way to find clarity was to spend more time with the family. He needed to observe, to experience their life firsthand, and to see if he could genuinely fit into it without forcing himself or disappointing them. With a deep breath, he walked toward their house, unsure what the day would bring, but certain that he could not avoid facing it. When he arrived, the twins greeted him warmly, their smiles as bright as the morning sun. "We were hoping you'd come today," one said, her voice gentle and inviting. The other twin added, "Don't worry. Mom just wants to spend time with you. Nothing formal. Just being together." Their words reassured him. Even in the midst of confusion, he felt a sense of acceptance, a feeling that he was welcome regardless of his decision. Inside, the mother was sitting at the kitchen table, her posture calm, her expression thoughtful. She gestured for him to sit across from her. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know this situation is not easy. It is unexpected and it carries weight. But I believe that with time, understanding, and honesty, you can find clarity." John nodded, unsure what to say. His mind was still crowded with questions and doubts. He had tried to reason with himself, to analyze his feelings logically, but the heart often had a voice louder than reason. And in the warmth of this home, with the twins by his side and their mother's gentle gaze upon him, his heart felt more aware than ever before. The mother continued, her voice calm but deliberate. "John, family life is built on understanding, patience, and respect. The twins and I have lived together for many years, learning from each other, supporting each other, and trusting each other. This is not something we take lightly, nor do we expect anyone to accept it without reflection. What matters is not the speed of your decision, but the honesty with which you approach it. John listened intently, absorbing every word. He realized that this was not a test of obligation or pressure, but an opportunity to see life through their eyes, to understand their values, their traditions, and the bonds that held them together. He felt a growing respect for their way of life, a way that seemed to honor connection and care above convenience or personal preference. For the next few hours, he observed the family's routines. The twins moved seamlessly through the house, helping their mother with chores, sharing stories, and supporting each other in ways that felt natural yet profound. John noticed the subtle gestures of care, the way the mother watched her daughters, the way the twins communicated silently through glances, the small acts of kindness that seemed to flow effortlessly. He began to see that family was not just about shared space or responsibilities. It was about understanding, empathy, and trust. As the day progressed, the mother shared more about their life. She spoke of challenges they had faced, lessons they had learned, and the ways in which they had grown together. She emphasized that being part of a family meant more than living together. It meant being present, being honest, and contributing to the well-being of each member. John absorbed these words, reflecting on his own life and the relationships he had known. He realized that in many ways this family represented something he had been missing, a sense of belonging, a network of care, and the freedom to be both supported and responsible. The twins included him in small activities throughout the day. They showed him how to prepare traditional meals, taught him small crafts, and shared stories about their childhood. Each activity was simple, yet it carried a sense of depth. John began to see the intentionality behind every action, the care, the patience, and the joy in being together. He realized that acceptance into this family would not be about formal agreements or obligations. It would be about participating, contributing, and learning to understand their world. By late afternoon, John found himself in the garden with the twins. The sun cast long shadows across the flowers and herbs, painting the scene in golden light. They talked quietly, their conversation gentle and personal. One twin asked about his childhood, his dreams, and the small joys that had shaped his life. John shared stories he had never told anyone before, stories of struggle, hope, and discovery. The twins listened with genuine interest, never interrupting, never judging. Their attention and curiosity made him feel valued, seen, and understood. As the conversation deepened, John felt a shift within himself. The confusion and apprehension that had dominated his mind began to give way to understanding. He realized that joining this family, if he chose to do so, would not mean surrendering his freedom or identity. It would mean building trust, learning, and embracing the connections that already existed. The initial shock of the mother's offer transformed into contemplation, curiosity, and even a quiet sense of possibility. Later, as they all sat in the living room, the mother spoke again. "John, part of family life is learning to understand emotions, yours, ours, and the shared bonds we create. It is natural to feel uncertainty, fear, or hesitation. These feelings are not weaknesses. They are opportunities to reflect, to grow, and to choose consciously. The twins and I will support you, but the choice must come from your heart." John nodded, feeling a sense of clarity he had not experienced before. The weight of the offer still pressed upon him, but it no longer felt overwhelming. Instead, it felt like a challenge he could consider with honesty and care. He realized that acceptance was not about yielding to pressure. It was about understanding, empathy, and willingness to grow alongside others. As evening approached, the family prepared a simple meal together. The twins laughed as they worked, teasing each other gently and including John in their jokes. He laughed too, feeling lighter than he had in days. The warmth of the home, the honesty of their words, and the shared experiences of the day began to settle in his heart. He understood that family life, especially in this household, was not just about roles or titles. It was about trust, patience, and connection. After dinner, they all sat together in the living room. The mother shared stories of her own youth, her lessons learned, and her hopes for the twins' future. John listened, fascinated, as she described the importance of understanding, empathy, and support in maintaining a family. The twins leaned against her, their closeness evident in subtle gestures of affection and care. John realized that this bond was something rare and beautiful, something he could choose to participate in if he approached it with honesty and respect. When it was finally time for him to leave, the twins walked him to the door. "Thank you for coming today," one said softly. "We hope you saw a little of what our family means and how we care for each other." The other twin added, "Take your time. We'll be here when you're ready. And remember, you are already important to us." John walked back to his room slowly, the cool evening air brushing against his face. His mind was quieter than it had been for days. He reflected on the day, the small acts of kindness, the laughter, the shared stories, and the quiet moments of understanding. He realized that the initial shock and confusion were natural, but they no longer dominated his thoughts. Instead, he felt a budding sense of clarity and a growing respect for the family. As he lay in bed that night, John understood that life was presenting him with a choice that required honesty, reflection, and courage. He didn't need to have all the answers immediately. What mattered was his willingness to understand, to observe, and to consider the bonds that had already been formed. The warmth of the twins' smiles and the mother's steady gaze lingered in his mind, reminding him that connection, trust, and empathy were the foundation of family life. And in that quiet moment, John felt something shift inside him. The fear and uncertainty were still present, but they were tempered by curiosity, respect, and a faint sense of hope. He knew that tomorrow and the days to come would bring more reflection, more understanding, and perhaps more clarity. For the first time in weeks, he felt that he was not merely surviving each day, but learning to step into a new world, one that challenged him, nurtured him, and offered the possibility of belonging.